Imagine walking into a courthouse expecting justice, only to be met with humiliation and brutality instead. A racist cop, blinded by arrogance, does the unthinkable. He kicks a black woman right in the middle of the courtroom, thinking he can get away with it. But what happens next will leave him shaking in fear just 4 minutes later. This is not just a story about injustice, it's a story about karma, action, and a reckoning that no one saw coming. Buckle up, because this one is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. But before we dive in, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And tell me, have you ever seen a moment where karma hit instantly? Let's talk about it below. If you're ready for an intense, action-packed story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss out on more stories like this. Now, let's get into it. Imagine walking into a courthouse expecting justice, only to be met with humiliation and brutality instead. A racist cop, blinded by arrogance, does the unthinkable. He kicks a black woman right in the middle of the courtroom, thinking he can get away with it. But what happens next will leave him shaking in fear just 4 minutes later. This is not just a story about injustice, it's a story about karma, action, and a reckoning that no one saw coming. Buckle up, because this one is going to keep you on the edge of your seat. But before we dive in, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. And tell me, have you ever seen a moment where karma hit instantly? Let's talk about it below. If you're ready for an intense, action-packed story, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so you don't miss out on more stories like this. Now, let's get into it. Gunfire roared through the courtroom, the deafening blasts drowning out the panicked screams of civilians still scrambling for cover. The once orderly space was now a war zone, riddled with bullet holes and broken glass. Smoke curled from the muzzles of multiple weapons as chaos consumed the room. Maya tightened her grip around the bailiff's discarded pistol, her heart pounding. She had never been in a gunfight before, but she wasn't about to sit around and become a casualty. She peeked over the jury box, assessing the situation. Whitaker, blood seeping from his arm, was pinned near the judge's bench. His gun was raised, but his wild shots had no precision. He was firing blindly. More out of desperation than strategy. The armed men, however, were calculated, moving in perfect sync. They weren't just thugs. These were professionals. But who were they after? Maya's instincts screamed that something bigger was at play. She ducked just as another hail of bullets tore through the wooden paneling above her. She needed an escape. Fast, across the room, a burly man in a dark suit reloaded with cold efficiency before signaling to his squad. Lock it down. No one gets out alive. Maya's stomach clenched. They weren't here to rob the place. This was an execution. Then she saw him, a man in a gray tactical vest crouched near the door, giving orders through an earpiece. He was built like a soldier, his movements too disciplined for a common hitman. His piercing eyes scanned the room, landing on one person, Whitaker. The realization hit Maya like a freight train. They were here for the racist cop. Whitaker must have pissed off the wrong people. Maybe he had debts. Maybe he had crossed the wrong criminal. Whatever the reason, these men wanted him dead, and they didn't care how many bodies hit the floor along the way. A stray bullet shattered a lamp above, sending sparks cascading down. The judge had disappeared behind the bench, cowering. Most of the courtroom staff had fled, leaving only the shooters, Whitaker, and the unlucky few still trapped. Maya inhaled sharply. If they killed Whitaker, there would be no justice. His crimes would be buried with him. She couldn't let that happen. Still crouched behind cover, she checked the pistol's magazine. 4 rounds. Not much. But enough. Maya had no illusions about being a hero, but she knew how to survive. She had been fighting battles her whole life, against men like Whitaker, against a system built to crush her. This was just another battlefield. She steadied her breathing, then sprang into action. Bang, she fired a shot at the nearest attacker. The bullet grazed his shoulder, making him curse as he dove for cover. Maya moved fast, darting between broken chairs and fallen bodies. She slid behind the prosecution table, barely avoiding another barrage of bullets. Whitaker saw her, eyes wide. "Are you crazy?" He shouted over the gunfire. "You're not dying today, racist," she shot back. Before he could respond, another operative flanked their position. Maya spun and fired, but the man was quicker. He kicked the gun from her hands, sending it skidding across the floor. She barely had time to react before his fist crashed into her jaw. Stars exploded in her vision. she hit the floor hard, pain jolting through her ribs. The attacker loomed over her, raising his weapon. Maya twisted, kicking his knee out from under him. He stumbled, and she lunged, grabbing the nearest object, a broken chair leg, and swung. Crack, the wood splintered against his temple. He crumpled. Maya gasped for breath, her hands trembling. She had taken him down, but she wasn't safe yet. More gunfire. More shouting, then, a deafening explosion rocked the courtroom. The blast sent Maya sprawling. Smoke and debris filled the air. Her ears rang, drowning out the chaos. She coughed, trying to push herself up. Through the haze, she spotted Whitaker dragging himself toward the exit. The lead operative, the man in the gray vest, wasn't far behind. He moved like a predator, his weapon trained on Whitaker's back. Maya had a choice: she could let him finish Whitaker off. Let karma take its course, or she could intervene. Her hands curled into fists. This wasn't about saving Whitaker. It was about making sure he faced real justice, not a quick, easy death. She forced herself to her feet, ignoring the pain screaming through her body. Then she ran. With every ounce of strength, she lunged at the assassin, tackling him from behind just as he squeezed the trigger. The shot went wide. Whitaker turned, startled, as Maya and the man crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs. The operative snarled, trying to shake her off. But Maya held on. She grabbed his wrist, forcing his gun away. Whitaker, still bleeding, realized his chance. He raised his pistol, aiming directly at the assassin's head. Maya's eyes widened. No, bang, a single shot rang out. Silence followed. Maya turned, heart racing, and what she saw made her blood run cold. Smoke curled from the barrel of Whitaker's pistol. The sharp scent of gunpowder hung in the air, mixing with the coppery tang of blood. The courtroom was eerily silent, save for the distant wails of sirens closing in. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the fallen man. The assassin lay motionless, his cold, dead eyes still locked in fury. A single bullet hole had ended him. She exhaled sharply, her mind racing. Whitaker lowered his gun, his face pale but defiant. He was still alive. For now, that was my kill, he muttered. Maya ignored him. There was no time to argue. The remaining gunmen were regrouping, barking orders to each other. They hadn't expected resistance, certainly not from a civilian. One of them, a thickly built man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward, raising his weapon. Enough games, he growled. Kill them both. Maya's pulse spiked. No, her eyes darted to the fallen assassin's weapon, lying just inches from her fingertips. The instant the scarred man squeezed the trigger, she rolled, snatching the pistol off the ground. Bang, the bullet missed her by inches, slamming into the wooden bench behind her. She fired back. Her shot struck him square in the shoulder. He stumbled with a curse, but he didn't go down. Whitaker, still crouched behind the judge's bench, opened fire as well, unloading his entire magazine in reckless fury. One of the attackers fell. Another ducked for cover. Maya seized the opportunity. She sprinted toward the nearest exit, dragging Whitaker along. Move! She shouted. They crashed through the side door into a narrow hallway lined with old wooden cabinets. The air was thick with dust, the fluorescent lights flickering above them. Whitaker panted beside her, gripping his bleeding arm. Where the hell are we going? Anywhere but here, Maya snapped. Footsteps thundered behind them. The assassins were coming. She yanked open the nearest door. It led to a stairwell. Go! She barked. Whitaker hesitated for a fraction of a second before scrambling up the steps, grunting in pain. Maya followed close behind. Bang! A bullet ricocheted off the railing, narrowly missing her. She whirled around and fired blindly down the staircase. The gunmen ducked, but they weren't stopping. We won't make it to the roof, Whitaker groaned. They'll cut us off. Maya's mind raced. He was right. Then she spotted it, a rusted maintenance door on the second-floor landing. She shoved it open and dragged Whitaker through. They burst into a dimly lit storage room filled with old courtroom records and metal filing cabinets. Maya slammed the door shut and locked it just as their pursuers reached the landing. Whitaker wheezed. Now what? Maya scanned the room, her brain working at full speed. They were trapped. The only way out was through the gunmen. A heavy pounding rattled the door. Come out now, and we'll make it quick. One of them called. Maya wasn't interested in negotiating. She grabbed a metal chair and jammed it under the doorknob, buying them a few seconds. Whitaker reloaded his pistol, wincing. You got a plan? Maya spotted an old service elevator at the far end of the room. The doors were partially open, revealing a dark shaft. "We go down," she said. Whitaker scowled. "Are you insane?" "Probably." The pounding on the door grew louder. The lock wouldn't hold much longer. Maya sprinted to the elevator and pried the doors open further. The shaft stretched downward into darkness, the bottom barely visible. A thick service cable ran down the center. She turned to Whitaker. "Can you climb?" He scoffed. "What choice do I have?" Bang! The door burst open. Maya grabbed the cable and swung herself into the shaft. "Move, Whitaker." He cursed under his breath but followed, gripping the cable with his uninjured hand. The gunmen stormed into the room just as they began their descent. There they are. Bullets tore through the air. Maya clenched her teeth, sliding down as fast as she dared. The metal burned against her palms. Whitaker grunted above her, struggling with his wounded arm. Then, one of the assassins leaned over the edge, aiming directly at Whitaker. Maya's heart lurched. She didn't think. She just acted, letting go of the cable for a split second. She twisted in midair and fired upward. The shot struck the assassin in the chest. He toppled forward, right into the shaft. Maya barely managed to swing herself out of the way as the body plummeted past her, crashing into the ground below with a sickening thud. Whitaker, still gripping the cable, stared down in horror. "Holy, keep moving." Maya snapped. They slid the rest of the way down, landing hard on the lower level. Maya's knees buckled, but she forced herself up. Whitaker groaned, gripping his side. "We need to get out of here." "No kidding," Maya muttered. The emergency exit was just ahead. Freedom was within reach, but the moment Maya pushed open the door, she froze. A figure stood waiting in the alleyway beyond, tall, broad-shouldered, holding a silenced pistol, and smiling. "You put up a good fight," he said smoothly. "But it ends here." Maya's blood turned to ice. She had escaped the courtroom gunfight, only to walk straight into another one. Maya's breath hitched as she locked eyes with the man standing in the alley. He was calm, too calm. His grip on the silenced pistol was steady, his posture relaxed but predatory. Whitaker cursed under his breath, stumbling to a halt behind her. Maya's mind raced. There was no cover, no escape. They had fallen right into his trap. The man smirked. "You've made quite the mess. Courtrooms aren't usually this exciting." Maya tightened her grip on the stolen pistol. "Who sent you?" He chuckled. "Does it matter?" Bang! Maya didn't wait for an answer. She fired. The assassin dodged, his reflexes impossibly fast. The bullet scraped the brick wall behind him. He fired back. Maya ducked, dragging Whitaker with her as the silencer spat death into the alleyway. The shots hissed past their heads, chipping away at the concrete. She pushed Whitaker toward a stack of wooden crates. "Move." They dived behind cover just as another bullet whizzed past, splintering the wood. The assassin kept advancing, unfazed. "You're only making this harder." Maya's pulse pounded. They were pinned. If she didn't act fast, they'd be dead in seconds. Whitaker groaned beside her, clutching his side. "Tell me you have a plan." She checked her ammo. Only 2 bullets left. "Yeah," she muttered. "Don't die." Whitaker grunted. "Not funny." Maya peeked over the crates. The assassin was closer now. His gun raised. She took a deep breath, then exploded into motion. She leaped up, firing her last 2 rounds. The first bullet missed, the second grazed his shoulder. The assassin barely flinched. Maya's stomach dropped. He smirked. "That all you got?" Then he fired. Maya twisted, barely dodging the bullet, but Whitaker wasn't as lucky. The shot hit him in the leg. He collapsed with a scream. Maya's eyes widened. "Whitaker." The assassin closed the distance, pressing the gun to Whitaker's head. Game over. Maya's hand scrambled for a weapon, anything. She grabbed a broken glass shard from the ground. "Stop," the assassin warned, tightening his grip on the trigger. Maya's heart pounded. She had seconds to act. Then, a gunshot rang out, but it wasn't from the assassin. His body jerked as a bullet tore through his chest. His eyes widened in shock. He staggered, then crumpled to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. Maya turned, stunned. A woman stood at the entrance of the alley, lowering a smoking pistol. She was tall, with dark tactical gear and piercing eyes. Maya recognized her instantly. FBI Special Agent Vanessa Carter. Carter stepped forward, holstering her gun. "You two sure know how to get into trouble." Maya exhaled shakily. You have no idea. Whitaker groaned from the ground. I think I'm dying. Carter rolled her eyes. You'll live. She turned to Maya. We need to move. More of them are coming. Maya's stomach clenched. Who are they? Carter's jaw tightened. Hired killers. And we need to find out who hired them. Sirens wailed in the distance. The gunfight inside the courthouse had drawn too much attention. Carter pulled Maya to her feet. Can you run? Maya nodded. Carter turned to Whitaker. You. Whitaker groaned. Not a chance. Carter sighed. Figures. She yanked out a radio. This is Agent Carter. I have 2 survivors. Requesting immediate extraction. The radio crackled. Copy that. ETA 5 minutes. Maya's stomach twisted. 5 minutes was a long time, too long. The gunfire inside the courthouse had died down. But Maya knew it wasn't over. Whoever had sent the assassins wouldn't give up so easily, and the real fight was just beginning. Carter's eyes darted to the end of the alleyway. The sirens were still distant, but the silence was deceptive. Maya could feel it, the tension, the weight of unseen eyes watching. The assassins weren't done. Help me get him up, Carter ordered. Maya bent down, grabbing Whitaker under the arm. He groaned as they lifted him, blood seeping from his leg wound. He was in bad shape, but there was no time to slow down. We need to move, Carter said. They'll be sending more. Maya scanned their surroundings. The alleyway was a dead end except for a rusty fire escape above them. The only way out was back through the streets. Where's the extraction point? Maya asked. 3 blocks north. Carter replied, tightening her grip on her pistol. Can you fight? Maya nodded. Carter turned to Whitaker. Can you shoot? Whitaker groaned. I can try. Carter tossed him a pistol from her belt. Then try hard. Maya barely had time to react before headlights flared at the other end of the alley. A black SUV skidded to a stop, its tires screeching against the pavement. The doors burst open, men in tactical gear spilled out, rifles raised. Maya's stomach clenched. Move. Carter shouted. She fired first, her bullet slamming into one of the gunmen. He dropped instantly. Maya dragged Whitaker behind a dumpster as gunfire erupted. Bullets ricocheted off the brick walls, sending sparks flying. Carter was already advancing, her shots precise, methodical. She moved like a hunter, picking them off one by one, but there were too many. Another SUV roared into the alley, blocking their escape. More gunmen poured out, pinning them down. Maya's breath came fast. They were surrounded. Whitaker gritted his teeth, raising his pistol with a shaking hand. He fired twice, missing completely. Damn it, he muttered. Carter ducked behind cover, her jaw clenched. They're pushing in. Maya's mind raced. They needed a way out, now. Then she saw it, a sewer grate. Cover me. She yelled. Carter and Whitaker unleashed a flurry of gunfire as Maya sprinted toward the grate. She dropped to her knees, fingers slipping against the metal. It was rusted, jammed tight. A bullet whizzed past her ear. She gritted her teeth and yanked harder. It didn't budge. Another shot slammed into the dumpster behind her. Then, a hand grabbed hers. Carter. Together, they heaved. With a screech, the grate popped loose. A dark tunnel yawned beneath them, reeking of damp concrete and rot. Maya didn't hesitate. She dropped down first, landing hard on the wet floor. Carter followed, then grabbed Whitaker and hauled him inside. Gunfire thundered above as the gunmen realized where they had gone. Then, a grenade clattered onto the pavement above them. Maya's eyes widened. Move! Carter shouted. They scrambled deeper into the tunnel just as the explosion rocked the alley above. Heat and debris blasted through the grate, filling the tunnel with dust and smoke. Maya coughed, pressing forward. The tunnel stretched ahead, dim and endless. Behind them, footsteps echoed. They're coming, Whitaker groaned. Maya's fists clenched. They were running out of time, and the real fight was still ahead. The air in the sewer was thick with the stench of rot and damp concrete. Every footstep echoed ominously, making it impossible to tell if the assassins were right behind them or still searching above. Maya moved quickly, gripping Whitaker's arm as he limped forward. Carter led the way, her pistol raised, eyes scanning every shadow. They won't stop, Carter muttered. Whoever sent them doesn't want you two making it out alive. Maya's jaw tightened. Then we make them regret it. A faint sloshing sound echoed down the tunnel. Maya froze. Carter held up a fist, signaling silence. The noise grew louder. Then, gunfire erupted from the darkness. Maya dove for cover as bullets tore through the damp walls, sending chunks of concrete flying. The assassins had found them. Carter fired back, her shots precise. Two of the gunmen went down instantly, their bodies splashing into the filthy water below, but more were coming. Maya grabbed Whitaker and dragged him behind a rusted maintenance ladder. He was barely standing, his leg wound bleeding heavily. "You good to fight?" she asked. Whitaker gritted his teeth, raising his pistol. "I can try." "Try harder," she muttered. More gunmen emerged from the tunnel ahead, their rifles flashing. Carter cursed. "We're pinned." Maya's mind raced. They needed an advantage, fast. Then she saw it. A cluster of exposed gas pipes ran along the ceiling. Maya aimed at the nearest one and fired. Boom! The explosion rocked the tunnel, sending fire and shrapnel through the air. The shockwave knocked several gunmen off their feet, giving them an opening. "Go!" Carter shouted. They sprinted forward, dodging the falling debris. The tunnel sloped upward, leading to a rusted metal door. Carter slammed into it, kicking it open. They burst into an abandoned warehouse. Stale air filled Maya's lungs as she scanned the vast, empty space. Then, an engine roared outside. Maya's stomach clenched. "More SUVs. They're waiting for us," Whitaker groaned. Carter reloaded her gun. "Then we take the fight to them." Before Maya could respond, the warehouse doors exploded inward. Gunmen stormed in, their weapons raised. The final showdown had begun. The warehouse filled with gunfire instantly. Muzzle flashes lit up the dark space as bullets tore through crates, sending splinters flying. Maya dove behind a stack of barrels, dragging Whitaker down with her. His breathing was ragged, and his leg wound was getting worse. Carter was already on the move. She rolled behind a forklift, firing with deadly precision. Two gunmen dropped before they could react, but more poured in. "They're not letting us leave alive." Whitaker grunted, barely able to lift his gun. Maya reloaded, her hands steady despite the chaos. "Then we changed the plan." She spotted a catwalk above. "If they could get up there, they might have a chance. Cover me," she shouted. Carter nodded and unleashed a barrage of gunfire, forcing the assassins to duck for cover. Maya grabbed Whitaker and sprinted toward a metal staircase. Bullets slammed into the steps behind them, but she pushed forward. They reached the catwalk. From here, they had a clear view of the entire warehouse. Then, the main doors burst open. Maya's blood ran cold. Detective Barnes stormed in, his face twisted with fury. The racist cop who started all of this, the same man who kicked her in the courthouse. He was armed. And he wasn't alone. A dozen heavily armed officers entered behind him. Barnes pointed at Maya. "Kill them all." The warehouse erupted into chaos. Carter shouted, taking cover behind the railing as the new wave of enemies opened fire. Maya's heart pounded. This was it. No more running. No more hiding. She took a deep breath, then leaped from the catwalk. She hit the ground rolling, firing as she moved. Her bullets found their marks, dropping two officers before they could react. Carter followed, moving like a ghost through the battlefield, taking down enemies with brutal efficiency. Whitaker, despite his injury, fired from above, forcing Barnes' men to scatter. But Barnes? He was coming straight for Maya. Their eyes locked. "You should have stayed down," Barnes snarled, raising his gun. Maya gritted her teeth. "You should have thought twice before kicking me." Barnes fired. Maya dodged, the bullet grazing her arm. She didn't hesitate. She tackled him. They crashed to the floor, grappling for control. Barnes was strong, but Maya was faster. She slammed an elbow into his ribs, making him grunt in pain, but he fought back, swinging his gun like a club. It cracked against her skull, sending stars across her vision. Barnes pressed the barrel of his gun against her chest. "It's over," he sneered. Then, bang, Barnes' body jerked violently. A bullet ripped through his shoulder. He screamed, dropping his gun. Maya looked up. Whitaker, despite his wounds, he had taken the shot. Barnes clutched his bleeding shoulder, his eyes wide with shock. You. Maya didn't give him a chance to finish. She grabbed his gun, and slammed it across his face. Barnes crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Silence filled the warehouse. The remaining officers saw their leader fall, and surrendered. Maya's chest heaved as she stood over Barnes' motionless body. "Justice, Carter approached, lowering her weapon. It's over. Maya exhaled. 4 minutes ago, Barnes thought he was untouchable. Now, karma had caught up with him. Wow. What a story. That racist cop thought he could do whatever he wanted, but karma had other plans, and it struck back hard. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you love action-packed stories like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more. And before you go, let's talk in the comments. What did you think of the way karma hit? Do you think he got what he deserved, or should it have been worse? Let me know below, and don't forget to share this video with someone who loves a good revenge story. See you in the next one.